Hi again, Captain Peter Cuttsy with another of my online briefings. And today we're going to brief on the engine overheat. We'll be using engine number 1 as an example. So let's get right into the briefing. The engine overheat will be alerted to the pilots via a master caution on both glare shields, a 4-tone oral alert, an overheat detect on the captain's annunciator panel only. So the first officer, if the pilot is the pilot monitoring, won't know what the problem is. And also an engine 1 overheat light on the fire panel on the center pedestal, which you won't be looking at. You'll be looking straight ahead at the flight instruments and out through the windshields. So the master caution comes on with a 4-tone oral alert, and we're going to use for the example, it was right after V1. You carry on and rotate, and pilot flying will fly the airplane. The pilot monitoring could call master caution to alert everybody that the master caution has come on. He or she will cancel the master caution to remember to bring it back later. Pilot flying, fly the aircraft. Rotate normally at 2 to 3 degrees per second to 15 degrees of pitch using the PFD. Once you've established the pitch, then use the command bars. The pilot monitoring will monitor the pilot flying. Cancel the master caution, as I mentioned, in order to reset the system for another fault, unless your SOP state differently. But remember, if you cancel the alert, then you must remember to recall it later at 400 feet. That's how it's designed to be used. Verify a positive rate of climb on the barometric altimeter and call positive rate. Pilot flying, after checking a positive rate of climb on your baro altimeter, call gear up. Pilot monitoring, position place the gear lever to the up position. Then when the gear lights are extinguished, place the landing gear lever to the off position, and that's on the NG only. On the MAX, there are just 2 positions up. So the landing gear lever would remain up. Track the extended center line on the nav display. All right. There's your PFD. You're pitched up at 15 degrees and you're tracking the nav display as we talked about in other videos that I've done. At 400 feet, pilot flying, call for heading cell or heading select. And the pilot monitoring will select heading select. Ensure VNAV is engaged if equipped. And of course, the pilot monitoring is going to ensure that also. Now, if required, it's grayed out because you may not be using it on most departures unless you have an engine out procedure or a normal departure or non-standard departure that calls for a turn before 1,500 feet. If that's the case, set bank limit to 15 degrees because you are limited to 15 degrees of bank unless you're at V2 plus 15, and open the speed window because you want to maintain that speed at that time because you won't be changing your flap setting if the procedure calls for that. But as I said, generally straight ahead to 1,500 feet. So basically, under normal circumstances, heading cell, VNAV should be engaged, and identify. That's the pilot flying. The pilot monitoring will push recall on the annunciator, identify the malfunction, and call, in this case, engine 1 overheat. Pilot flying, disengage the auto throttle with hand on number 1 thrust lever and say engine number 1 thrust lever confirm. After confirming engine number 1, confirm 1, or number 1, I should say, pilot monitoring. These calls follow your company SOPs, but these are standard calls. Then the pilot flying engine number 1 thrust lever, retard slowly until the overheat light extinguishes or the thrust lever is closed. I say slowly because the overheat light may go out after you first start retarding the thrust lever. And if it does, you stop and you'll end up having partial thrust on that engine. Pilot monitoring, your job is to monitor the action being taken. Now remember, we're in the aviate mode of this operation. Excuse me. By that I mean nothing else is done but flying the airplane. The pilot flying is flying, and the pilot monitoring is making sure that that is happening. You're a team. All right. Now, at 800 feet, confirm VNAV engaged, speed bug moves to flaps up, or call for set flaps up speed. Open the speed window using level change is one way to do it, and bug up to flaps up speed. Accelerate and call for flaps retraction on schedule, and select the autopilot when the aircraft is fully under control and in trim. Confirm VNAV engaged, and speed bug moves to flaps up, or set flaps up speed as requested, retractor flaps on as requested, and monitor the pilot's flying action. Now a note, as I mentioned before in other briefings, the pilot flying normally makes all MCP selections while an autopilot is engaged. However, airmanship dictates that if the pilot flying is not comfortable in making MCP selections for whatever reason, the pilot flying should ask the pilot monitoring to make such selections, except for the initial selection of the autopilot. Follow your company SOPs. When flaps are fully retracted and light is out, call for max continuous thrust. If returning to land at the departure airport, fly at flaps up speed and plan on holding. Continuing en route, call for engine out climb page, climb at engine out speed, climb to engine out altitude. Pilot monitoring, select CON on the MCP, CDU, and N1 page and make selections as requested and contact ATC. Continue with route 1 to destination or utilize route 2 if you have it to your alternate and if it's loaded. And you're going to navigate. Ensure that the bank selector, if you're returning to land, the bank selector is returned to the auto selection once you are above MSA. Now, and then communicate. Somewhere in there, you're going to communicate. And for the sake of this briefing, we're going to assume that you're going to come back and land. Now, let's go and have a look at what's actually going to transpire. So you're on 2 engines after takeoff. You've got a problem. The master caution was canceled, and it's recalled at 400 feet and announced. And the pilot flying will conduct the memory items as per the QRH. Let's go and have a look at that. So the memory items are here. There are 3 of them, at least to start with. Auto throttle if engaged, disengage. And thrust lever, affected engine confirm, close, as we reviewed already. Now close means retard it slowly, so that if the light does go out, you'll end up with partial thrust. Don't slam the thrust lever closed. Bring it back slowly, and the pilot monitoring monitor the overheat light, which is really down below in the center pedestal on the overheat fire detection panel. So that's the pilot monitoring job, not the pilot flying's job. Pilot flying is flying the airplane straight ahead. If the overheat light extinguishes, let's do that one first, run the engine at reduced thrust to keep the light extinguished. Now the thrust lever may be closed, or it may be partial thrust. So you're going to have to trim the airplane properly and to fly the airplane in an in-trim fashion, as I previously briefed you on other briefings. And then you would continue the checklist, and then the engine overheat checklist complete, if that was the case. Well, let's go to the other scenario. If the engine overheat light stays illuminated, go to the engine fire or severe damage or separation checklist. All right, so you're going to actually have to go and you're going to do memory items. You've got memory items to do. You're not going to get involved in the checklist here. You're going directly to memory items here because you've got an overheat light on. So you're going to carry out the memory items again to make sure that they've been done. So again, the pilot flying is going to put his hands on number 1 thrust lever and say confirm, auto throttle disengage, disengage, engine number 1 thrust lever, confirm. And the pilot monitoring will make sure engine number 1 confirm, and the pilot flying will make sure that it's closed. Maybe you didn't do it before. Now the pilot monitoring goes to the engine start lever for the affected engine, engine number 1 start lever, confirm. Pilot flying as he's flying, looks down, confirm number 1, and cut off. Engine fire switch for the affected engine, pull, confirm, pull, and then the pilot monitoring would pull it. Now, to manually, if there are no lights in the fire switch, which you don't have, this wasn't an engine fire, it was an overheat. So you're going to have to manually unlock the engine fire switch by pressing the override and pull. Now, this is important and it's been missed and not understood. And it's this little word here that's important. If the engine fire switch or the engine overheat light is illuminated, we are in this particular situation. So it's important. Engine fire switch, rotate to the stop and hold for 1 second. Take a timing. If after 30 seconds, the light, the engine fire switch or, we're with the or. Engine overheat light stays illuminated. Engine fire switch, rotate to the other stop and hold for 1 second. End of memory items. So we've gone from one set of memory items in the engine overheat to another set of memory items. Now you fly the airplane the way we were looking at. Let's go back to that. Here, we don't know when all of this is going to happen. We know it's not going to happen until 400 feet as far as starting to do the recall. So it's going to be at that point in time that you're going to have to carry on with the memory items of the overheat checklist. And if it leads you to the engine fire or severe damage or separation checklist, remember you're going to a checklist that is assuming that you've done memory items prior. You don't go into any checklist at this point. You complete the memory items of the engine fire, severe damage or separation to ensure that you're going to do the right thing with the fire, fire switch, and also rotating to bottles if that's the case. So you're flying the airplane in the meantime. And this is how you fly the airplane. Now, we've discussed this before in the previous limit surge or stall, non-normal. Have a look at that. And I go into it in detail there. So it's very different from limit surge or stall. You're involved in an engine overheat. You've got 2 engines operating until you actually bring the thrust lever back. Whereas in the engine limit surge or stall right at V1, you were actually trying to maintain the aircraft straight with rudder. In any case, fly the airplane. And this is the pattern you're going to use to fly it. Now, it's important now that once you've done the memory items, you're going to communicate. You're going to navigate first, probably to a holding pattern over the airport, ideally, is what you would like. And then do a quick DODAR. By that, I mean, did you do the right thing? Yes, we did. What are our options? Well, we're going to come back, let's say, and land, let's say. That's today's decision. All right. And did we do the memory items? Yes, we've done the memory items. All right. Now you can call for a checklist after you're heading towards the holding pattern and the holding pattern was set up. And after you've communicated a short spurt to ATC. Remember, once you break the SID, you've got to talk to somebody. But you fly the airplane first, that's aviate. You navigate second. Navigating now in this portion is you're telling ATC you want to go overhead the airport if you can and hold there. And then pilot flying will call for you to set up a holding pattern. It may be in a published hold, whatever. So that's the navigate portion of it. Do a quick little review. Quick, I mean, maybe a 10-second review. Did we do the right thing? Did we do the memory items? Did we get them all done? Yes. All right. Checklist engine overheat. You do the first non-normal checklist first. You're flying the airplane. Pilot flying is flying into the holding pattern. When the first non-normal checklist is complete, and the pilot monitoring reads engine overheat checklist complete, then do an after takeoff check. Once the after takeoff check is complete, do the second non-normal, if there is one. And in this case, there is. It's an engine fire, severe damage, separation, non-normal checklist. Do that checklist. Down to deferred procedures where you're going to have to set up the airplane to come back and land. And now you may be led to the one engine and operative landing checklist, which you will. So that will come later. So you follow the checklist is what I'm saying, and don't rush the whole operation. So you've got a series of different things to do. Aviate, navigate, quick DODAR, meaning a quick assessment. Did we do the right thing? Yes. All right. First non-normal checklist, which is checklist engine overheat. When that's completed, after takeoff checklist. When that's completed, checklist engine fire, severe damage, separation. And then follow the checklist and one engine and operative landing. If you're going to come back and land, which you are, down to deferred items. Deferred because you have to set up the approach and many other things that we've talked about already in one of my other videos, how to set up the aircraft for the approach, and then do the deferred items and come back and land. All right. I hope that's been helpful to you. If you want an online briefing with more detail, I spent an hour 40 with you online and your partner. And the information's at the top of the screen. Call me, email me, and I have a schedule with others around the world that I'm doing, either single pilot or a crew together, and we can brief you on anything that you want to be briefed on with respect to your training. And then I record it and give you access to it in the cloud and Google Drive. You can review it all and then go to your real briefing before you do your sim. Hope you enjoyed the briefing. See you on my next briefing, which will be another non-normal. Thank you.